Guys, thank you so much for your patience on this review. This is the most fun I've had with a numbered Final Fantasy since 10. Scratch that, 14 is a good one. The ones after I thought were so meh. I do plan on doing a part 2 of this review, but that is going to have to come later because look at all these games that are coming out and are coming out. Oof. Man, one game at a time, and we definitely gotta do a review on a new game and one of my favorite franchises of all time, so let's get started. Yes, this review is about the gameplay, but I want to say with no story spoilers that this game's plot is almost a 10 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10. I was really disappointed in 15's lack of story, as most of it was outside of the base game. I bought 15 at launch because I'm a day one adopter, if not an early adopter when it comes to Final Fantasy, and But how this game's plot is handled is a massive improvement, and the way it should be done, in addition to being interesting, I got the whole story and a complete game at launch. In fact, I am happy to say this game does not need any DLC or any add-ons that would make something underwhelming worth playing. Of course, I do realize there is DLC, both free and paid, coming out. The free is mainly cosmetics, but there are 2 paid DLC expansions. Let me emphasize again, this game really does feel like a complete experience, but I did not say this game was perfect, as 1 or 2 things hold it back from being an S rating, but we'll get to those. The point is, I will happily pay for an expansion to see more of the world of Valistia. So gameplay. It starts out with this awesome icon battle with some cinematic flair. I saw these in the trailers leading up to the game's release and was awed by how awesome they looked, and it's cool to actually experience one right at the beginning. Most of the time you'll be playing as the main character Clive Rossfield, and for the most part he's really the only character you control, unlike the other games in the series where you control other characters in combat. More on that later though. As I'm sure most of you know, this game is not turn-based. The combat is action. I will say this, I do love turn-based games. Action combat is something I can accept for Final Fantasy going forward, but it does not replace turn-based combat. I am willing to accept the change, as there are other turn-based games still coming out today, although one of the reasons why I've grown to love this series is the turn-based and active time battle systems. But I am willing to keep an open mind, as I've caught on that Final Fantasy is a franchise that does take risks and performs experiments. Let's see, the combat director for this game worked on Devil May Cry 5. That's a good game. The first hour of combat or so is pretty basic at first, but it does get more fulfilling as you keep playing. You start out with basic sword combinations with the push of the square button. The triangle casts spells. The right shoulder button will allow you to dodge. Speaking of which, there is this mechanic called precision dodge, where if you dodge at the right moment, you can counter effectively. Although I did find it to be that there is quite a bit of room for error with this mechanic. The window to dodge in time is not small, and you can spam the dodge without penalty. I did wish that there was more high risk, high reward at first, but then I became guilty of just spamming it because what the heck. I did die a few times playing this game, but the game is really not that difficult. In fact, I would say it's a bit on the easy side, so if you're looking for a challenge, you might be disappointed. Although you do unlock Final Fantasy mode after you beat the game, which is supposedly hard mode, but I have not played through the game on that setting yet, so I could not tell you how much harder it actually is. Back to the combat. Circle is the ability of the icon you have equipped. In the case of the Phoenix, you zoom in on your enemy. Potions are mapped to your D-pad. If you hold down right trigger, you see special abilities from your equipped icon. You use them by pressing square or triangle. It may not be very strategic, strategic combat like some longtime fans may be looking for, but I do think it's pretty fun. By the end of the game, I really enjoyed gaining icons and learning their abilities. Although my problem with this system at first was I did not have another element other than fire to work with until Garuda, which was 5-ish hours into the game. You can give commands to Torgal, who is Clive's Frost Wolf, to attack. He does have healing abilities too, but I found potions to be more useful. But until I got Garuda, I would have Sid accompanying me, as he had Ramu, who does lightning, and I remember wishing I could give him commands to use lightning to make this feel more like Final Fantasy as I know it, but characters come and go in this game for various reasons, although the reasons are mostly plot related. 4 had characters come and go too. And you know what though? You do get icons from various characters, and by the end of the game when I had all of them, it made sense why the game had no other controllable party members for the most part. I'll talk more about the characters in part 2 of this review. I found the enemy variety to be plentiful, although I found it to be that you can fight them all with your preferred icons. It was weird to me being able to use fire-based attacks against fire enemies, which in the other games, that's not a good idea. Also, as far as status effects, I mostly remember enemies getting a shield where you can only attack with spells until it's gone, but other than that, I basically fought every enemy the same way despite what I said about enemy variety. This game does not have the RPG depth of other games in the franchise. It is kept really simple. A risk that I have to say is really bold for the franchise, and it works? Yeah, this game to me was enjoyable from start to finish. Not trying to criticize open world games, but I do not think Final Fantasy XV benefited from being an open world game. After the harsh criticism of 13's linearity, 15 went too far the opposite direction to the point where, in my opinion, it is the wrong direction. 16 is linear at points, but the opportunities to go off the beaten path to do quests are plentiful. The world map is back, and despite it working like you move a cursor to pick a place to travel to, I am glad it's back in some fashion. I appreciate Square for listening to criticism regarding 13's linearity, and I am glad the story is not sacrificed for open world. I think this point A to point B with the ability to go off the beaten path is a structure I think future Final Fantasy should follow, but the low point that made me put down the controller at points were the side quests. While I was immersed in the game's plot, I went out of my way to do most if not all the side quests, and to be honest, they're so mediocre that they're kind of a drag. But I do have a couple of good things to say about them. There are a couple that really contribute to the politics and world building of this game. By the end of the game, there are some regulars that you help out a lot, and the way some of these characters develop, I almost want to say that some of these NPCs are Majora's Mask quality NPCs, although I might be giving them too much credit when I say that. Other than that, the side quests are mostly talk to this person, go to that location, kill this thing, that sort of thing. Mechanically, the variety is severely lacking, and as I'm writing this review, I actually forgot most of them, but some of the quest givers I do remember because, again, some are regulars. There really could not be Chocobo quests that require my Chocobo pal here, or a card game like Triple Triad or Tetra Master. Speaking of which, I was playing Magic the Gathering Arena when I had moments wishing this game had a card game. But other than that, the game is fun. My favorite icons were Titan because his attacks are powerful and I love his shield. With perfect timing, he makes great counterattacks. Odin is also one of my favorites. Doing massive damage and combos are the name of the game here. With Odin, I really like how Zantetsuken gets built up, and when it's unleashed, it does massive damage. Stagger is also back for bonus damage, and limit breaks are here to power you up, and you know what? I would not mind calling these devil triggers because why not? Square Enix, as I've said before, is great with cutscenes and animations. I would say the graphics are pretty good. Not quite as good as God of War Ragnarok, but they're pretty good. There was a graphics setting in the menu that had this butt ugly motion blur. Ugh. But I ended up playing the game with the other setting. I can't get enough of these icon battles. Woo! They are awesome! Sure, the character designs are not Tetsuya Nomura, and while I do prefer his character designs, I remember when I saw the first trailer, I got Final Fantasy XIV vibes. It was less colorful, sure, but the character designs and colors really fit with the adult fantasy tone that this game was going for. The music, good music in Final Fantasy is a must, and the first songs you hear, now that's some good stuff. I'd be here all day talking about the music, but I think I better move on. Combat also looks pretty good. I admired the crystals non-stop when I saw them. The English voice acting is also pretty good. I listened to the Japanese voices and I can say the English dub is better. I'm saying that as someone who watches anime in Japanese half the time. Special shout out to Ralph Ineson, who is the voice of Sid.
I only wish to offer our kind of choice. A place where we can die on our own terms.
There is a part 2 coming at a later date, but I am going to give my verdict now. If you are willing to take this game for what it is, instead of wishing it was turn-based, it's actually a good time. It is a bit baffling that Square refused to call this a JRPG. I mean, it does feel more like an action game in a series of RPGs. It may not be a flaw, but it is a bizarre direction to take. The point is, however, I had fun. The story is amazing, the characters are good, the world building is excellent, the music is great, the gameplay is fun, but I am going to give it an A instead of an S. The side quests I do find to be a bit of a low point, as they are mostly mediocre at best. I do wish the side content had more variety. I spent a good chunk of my 60 hours with this game doing all of these side quests, and would have bumped up to an S depending on how much improvement there is. Square has the talent necessary to make a good overall package when it comes to games, but they really should think about how to improve their side content. As far as where this game ranks on Final Fantasy games, I would say it is in my top 10. I would rank it higher than my 10th favorite, but lower than my 6th favorite, so somewhere around here. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. With that being said, take care.